Hi, friends. Hello, hello. Tonight we're going to have live with me, attorney Alina Shaltsova, and we will be discussing the most recent interesting immigration news. I will be talking about ICE arrests and ICE raids, New York sanctuary city status, and in general, what Trump has in mind for sanctuary jurisdictions. And of course, we're going to talk about the United States Supreme Court decision in relation to parole programs. So thank you very much for joining. My name is Alina Shaltsova. I'm an immigration attorney. I've been practicing immigration law in the United States for 17 years at this point, and I use my social media to share with you immigration news, tips, and of course, my thoughts on various situations in our immigration life. So join me, like and share the stream. And in the end, I will be answering your guys' questions. So please type them up, say hello, let me know where you're watching from, and let's start. We have a lot to talk about. One of the things is the fact that ICE apparently is underperforming by Trump's standard, and they're going to change the leadership. ICE is changing the leadership to promote the agenda of even more arrests, right? So for new Trump administration, the arrests that have been happening is not enough. They want, instead of 1,000 people per day, about 3,000 people per day to be arrested per news articles. Where will they get so many people? Well, we know that currently ICE is doing the raids, right? They're raiding the work sites. For example, we have credible reports that a work site in Florida was raided and about 100 workers at once were arrested, right? So that's just one of the examples, but that's not it. That's not the only place where they're having these people from. They're also arresting people at courthouses. So it's truly is crazy, I have to tell you, because arrest at the courthouses, right? I feel like they're the most or least fair ones, because people show up for their court hearings in immigration courthouses. If you don't show up, we all know that you will be deported. So people must show up unless they are facing, deportations in absentia. And that's when the cases in courts get dismissed. Regular proceedings under 240 INA Act get dismissed, and they're placed into expedited removal proceedings and are arrested. So that's one of the ways, one of the sources of these people. It's the courthouses and people who show up for the hearings. Another group that is being actively targeted right now are people who were at some point, long time ago, released on bonds. So what's happening is those obligators, people who sign the bonds, they started receiving forms I-340. And I cannot say that this practice is a new practice. Biden administration also was using this notice to produce an alien, but not in such a mass basis, I would say, not so widespread. And what happens is that when people show up for their appointments, they are arrested if ICE believes there were violations of the bond rules, right? And you need to be ready for that. And third group of people, so we spoke about people at the work sites, we spoke about people in the courthouses, bonds, and the third group of people, of course, are people with past orders or removals. These three groups, the recent groups, has the largest sources of detainees currently. If you had a past removal order, you also have to worry about you being arrested. So if you were released on bond, past removal order, and if you're currently in removal proceedings, but you may be subjected to this expedited removal proceedings, you may be a target for arrest to meet that 3,000 per day quota. Okay. So that's what's happening. You need to know that. You need to consult with an attorney if you haven't done so. Again, there are credible news that ICE is going to just increase the number of arrests, not decrease the number of arrests. It's very important to understand that and very important to be prepared. The best thing that you can do for yourself if you in the past had an order of removal is try to file a motion to reopen, even though in this current climate it's going to be much harder to have your case reopened than during the Biden administration, because prosecutors are not going to exercise the discretion to join your motion. Supreme Court allows Trump to revoke temporary legal status of 500,000 to 500,000 immigrants from 4 countries. Those countries are Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Haiti. What's happening here is that Supreme Court lifted the stay that was imposed by the lower court on Trump's administration to proceed with the revocation of the parole program status for nationals of these 4 countries. However, interestingly enough, the question whether or not the government may stop the program is still in courts, in lower courts, and the circuit federal courts. So it's kind of a messy situation, I would say. Typically, when we're dealing with any kind of court proceedings, the court would like to maintain status quo or leave the matters as is until the final resolution of the case, just what the circuit court did. Trump's administration applied for emergency lift with the US Supreme Court and they won. There were 2 justices who objected, who dissented, but we see that the majority of the justices of the United States Supreme Court ruled in favor of Trump's administration. They're basically stating that with their decision that they believe that executive branch does have this very broad powers to stop any administrative program whatever they feel like it. Very interesting, because you see the federal courts at the lower level generally disagree with this concept. We've just seen it in the decision related to the case of Mahmoud Khalil, where a federal judge questioned whether a simple notice by the Secretary of State, without more, without an explanation, without the justification, is sufficient to actually deport somebody out of the United States. It's a very important decision. You know, Mahmoud Khalil's fight is not over yet, but that reasoning by federal judge was very important, because basically the judge stated that nobody is above the law. Even the Secretary of State must provide justification for their actions, and you can't just randomly decide one thing and tomorrow another thing without justification for your actions. Very interesting decision. Yes, so sanctuary jurisdictions are being pressured again. Trump's administration created a list of jurisdictions by state, and each state then divided into county, and in each county you can find a list of the cities that are currently what we call the sanctuary cities. When I looked at this map, and I'm in New York, I was surprised to see that Nassau County is not a sanctuary county when Suffolk County is. Go figure, because people usually say the Suffolk County is purely Republican and Nassau County can be Republican or Democratic depending on elections. So you can find your jurisdiction there, and basically what Trump administration is saying is that this jurisdiction are impeding the ability of federal government to enforce immigration laws and with consequences. Basically, the Trump administration is going to be somehow punishing these jurisdictions, probably by cutting off their funding, because that's how executive power can influence municipalities, right? By cutting off their funding. And what we're going to see next is what choice these jurisdictions are going to make. Will they succumb? Will they give up their sanctuary status? Or will they cooperate with the federal government? Well, I do not know what's going to happen, to be honest, because it seems that a lot of prominent figures just folded, right? We know some mayors who switched sides because of the politics. But for now, if you're in the sanctuary jurisdiction, the biggest difference for you is that the local law enforcement is not going to call eyes on you, generally speaking, even though there are sometimes situations like we've seen with the truck driver in New York. But generally speaking, this local law enforcement, they will not call eyes on you if they stop you for in connection with traffic situation, or with some even criminal situation, or in connection with some compliance, like if you're a truck driver, right? They will not be cooperative with ICE. So that's what that's what's happening all week. Every week we have new piece of news, new information, this or that. On the positive side, I'm going to share something very interesting with you, is that the marriage-based cases, green card-based cases, are being processed extremely fast. I've never seen anything like that. If you filed a case a month ago, a person, non-citizen, already has a work permit approved. There is a delay with the social security number issued if the person has not had it before, because of this, change in processing of the social security numbers now. But marriage-based cases are being processed with the speed of light, and the work permits for spouses, at least, of U.S. citizens and parents of U.S. citizens are being processed with the speed of light. Like within 30 days, you get that work permit. After filing, it's very, very fast. So that's the only group of cases that is actually I'm happy about. All right. And the rest is like hit or miss. Huge delays with USCIS receipts, up to 90 days and sometimes more. We have to wait for the receipt for a case that goes to a Vermont service center. I'm talking about T visas, U visas, and VAWAs, all right, VAWA applications. Too long, 90 days plus. And some other cases we see huge delays with receipts. Okay. Now, if you guys have questions related to the United States immigration, I'll be very happy to answer them. Let's see what we have tonight. Hi, guys from TikTok. How are you all doing? Thank you very much for your hearts. I see you all. Thank you for sharing the stream. It's very nice of you to do so. Don't forget to follow so that we're not going to get lost in this sea of digital information. Hi, Sevi. My husband master hearing is coming up next week after the case was remanded after 4 years. After he failed, probably. Not sure what happened there with the rest of the questions, but the case was remanded. It's not bad, right? Hi, Andrew. Was the pause stopped? The pause on processing of the applications filed by the parolees, that pause was stopped. So it's still in effect. The decision by the United States Supreme Court to stop the parole programs for those 4 countries is a different decision. It didn't affect that lift of the pause on applications. Okay? All right. Hi, Eric. Green card through marriage for years now. Can I sponsor my new spouse for adjustment? So you received a green card through marriage 4 years ago, and you would like to sponsor your new spouse for adjustment. Well, if you only have a green card, you won't be able to sponsor your spouse for adjustment right away. There are also rules on when you can sponsor your spouse after you received your green card based on marriage, and I believe it's you have to wait for 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, or you have to become a U.S. citizen. But you can call my office. We can consult you. We can look it up and see what happened. All right. Hi, Roro. I have TPS. Does it mean my status currently revoked? I wouldn't say so. Depends on what country you're from, right? I do not know which country you're from, when you received the TPS, under which designation, because even if you are from, let's say, Haiti, there were different periods of times for designation of the country for the TPS. Hence, different people may have different expiration days for their status, depending on whether they filed on time and under which designation they received the status. Is it advisable for someone with a pending asylum to go for his yearly report to ICE office now? Advisable. You must do that. You do not have a choice. All right. If you are called for a nice appointment, no sane lawyer is going to tell you not to show up. Why? Because you will be in violation of your order of supervision. What do you think is going to happen next? You will be picked up. Okay. So, hire an attorney with you if you have any concerns, though. All right. Hire an attorney to come with you. Hi, Pete F8. Is background check always check before and during approval of US citizenship? Always, of course. That's one of the main steps that USCIS at least should take when they are approving somebody to become a citizen in the United States. Okay, very important. Yes. Thank you very much, guys, for your gifts on TikTok. Let's see. You're welcome, guys. Let me answer some questions from YouTubers. How are you guys doing tonight? I hope you have an upbeat Friday night. Happy Friday night. Hi, Success 25. Hi, Alina. Our administratively closed cases will be reopened for sure, even for someone who came legally and no criminal record and good person. Yes, they will be. The government has filed already motions, and they're in the process of filing more motions to reopen administratively closed cases, but your lawyer can object. And if you have strong common sense objections, the judge does not have to reopen that case. Okay? So if you're waiting for something and you explain to court how this reopening is going to disadvantage everybody and waste resources of, of the court, of the prosecutor, and everything else, then hopefully the judge is going to listen to your lawyer and will remain the case administratively closed. All right. Hi, Prosper. I have reporting requirement at ICE office in July. Will I be detained? I have pending asylum and incredible fear determination, but I'm afraid I do not have any criminal record. I wouldn't say that necessarily you will be detained. Not everyone who has a reporting requirement is detained. Not everybody will be detained. But please hire an attorney to go with you, because if for whatever reason you are, it would help to speed up, hopefully, your liberation from the detention. Okay? Some people say, well, lawyer doesn't change anything. Sometimes we cannot stop ICE from arresting you, but we will know the officer's name, we will know the information as to what's happening, what are the charges, why they change their mind and taking you into custody. It all may be very relevant when you're trying to get the person out of the detention. Okay. Sometimes ICE incorrectly says that you are an arriving alien, for example, and every bit of information is going to be extremely helpful when you're fighting for the client's release. Also, if you're grabbed by ICE, it takes at least 2 days for you to appear in the system. We don't even know where you're going to be. Well, thank you very much, guys, for this interesting gift. Some kind of digital candy. So very often we don't even know where you're going to be, right? But that presence of a lawyer may really speed up the path to your freedom. Thank you, Pete, for the candy bouquet. It's so cute. You have different interesting things on TikTok. You know, that's lighten up my day. Thank you. Hi, Fatu. What happened if you filed probably U visa and left the United States? Will the process still continue? Well, I believe that technically it may still continue because U visa can be issued overseas. I actually never had this situation happen, I'll be honest. I don't think the process will be abandoned, but I don't want to lie to you, right? Or maybe there is some kind of a regulation saying that the process may be abandoned. I know that to qualify for the U visa, you have to meet certain requirements, including the fact that the crime should have happened in the United States or United States jurisdiction, right? But I won't be able to tell you for sure. I think the process should continue, right? But maybe there is something else that I never had this situation. Thankfully, my clients never, those who filed for the U visa never left because I tell them, you cannot leave, all right? If they need something from you and you're not here, it will be a disaster. So please don't leave the United States. I had some clients who left in the middle of the removal proceedings. They just left. So I'm going to tell you what happens then. If you don't ask the judge for the permission and you just take off, the judge is going to order you deported usually, especially now, these days. So once you start some sort of a process, don't just abandon it, all right? Don't just abandon it. If you want to leave the United States and your case is in immigration court, ask the judge for voluntary departure. So at least you're not going to have that order of removal against you. Okay? Close your case the right way before leaving. But that's for those who are in removal proceedings. Hi, Kelvin. What's the average time for I-130 lately? I would say it largely depends on who filed at I-130 and for whom. If it's a US citizen filed for their spouse or parent, it's going to be pretty fast, 6 to 9 months about. Okay? All right. All right. Hi, Elvis. Thank you very much for your encouragement. Is there any processing times for National Benefits Center? I could not find any info. I wouldn't know. I mean, I don't really, honestly, I never check those processing times because they're useless. Even if they're published on USCIS website, typically they're not accurate. For example, you open that processing times website and you look at the form I-824, and it's going to tell you something terrible like 13 months. And you're going to have a heart attack. That form you need to submit if you incorrectly designated or you changed your mind as to where your beneficiary is going to receive immigrant visa. So you open it up and you look at it and you're like, whoa, 13 months? I don't want to deal with that. I'm going to refile my case. But in reality, it's usually 45 days. I have no idea. I have no idea where those 13 months are coming from. I'll be honest. I just do not know. So let's see that National Benefits Center. Let's take I-45, for example, family-based adjustment, right? Mhm. Yeah, I cannot find it. I'll be honest. I don't think they publish it. Probably not. So tell me your situation, and I'm going to tell you approximately how long you need to wait, unless you have some odd case. Sometimes we have these odd cases that do take an extremely long time, but usually they're connected to some kind of an issue. Okay, criminal convictions, VAWA, sometimes interesting cases. Cases by widowers, they sometimes travel to National Benefit Center. All right. Okay. Let's see. I will be applying for U visa. Yes. U visa definitely may help in stopping that removal and detention. Yes. All right. Hi, Kent Bomber. Do you travel for the asylum interview yourself? What is a reasonable expectation of a lawyer for such an interview? Do you travel? Do I travel? Sometimes I do. Sometimes lawyers from my office go for asylum interview, depending on our availability and cost, of course, because partner level attorney presence costs more than lawyers who are junior, obviously. So lawyer's presence at asylum interview helps you a lot if your case is not granted. All right. And it helps a lot when lawyer can help to point out the officer in the right legal direction. Lawyer at asylum interview cannot speak on your behalf. We can't. We may sometimes ask you follow-up questions, but here you have to be careful. All right. Why? Because you don't ask the questions you do not know answers to, right? You have to be careful not to harm the client's case. We can and we do summarize client's testimony and make this conclusion of law explaining how the client qualifies for asylum. All right, so that's what the lawyer does. But the most valuable part is not even that. It's the fact that the lawyer usually writes down questions and answers at the asylum interview. And if your case is not granted at asylum interview, the lawyer's notes are very helpful in addressing that denial in court and preparing for cross-examination by the prosecutor, because the prosecutor is going to have full transcript and we do not. If the lawyer was not present in the interview, we will ask for copies of the files, FOIA and asylum notes, but we're not going to get everything. Some of the information is sealed. So that's where the value of your lawyer at the interview comes from the ability to transcribe what happens at the interview, what that officer is focusing on, all right, what soft spots the officer identified in your case, and how to prepare better in court. Okay, maybe there is some information that pops up that you didn't even think of, like something in relation with your past visa applications or some interesting accounts of witnesses against you. All right, sometimes there are some interesting surprises. Hi, Danielle. My fiance is Dominican undocumented immigrant, and we're planning to get married after being together for 5 years. And I need advice on how all of it play out with court or immigration eyes. All right, the court and immigration eyes would be relevant only if your fiance ever had been or right now is in immigration removal proceedings. If not, then just because the person overstayed, but they're marrying a US citizen, Okay, so just because they overstayed, they're not necessarily going to be placed in removal proceedings, because most people are not going to be. If you're an immediate relative, you are a spouse or a parent of a US citizen, you're entitled, despite of your overstay and unlawful, unauthorized work in the United States, to receive a green card, adjustment of status based on petition by your US citizen family member. So not necessarily that you guys will have to deal with ICE at all, okay? But if there is something else going on, past charges, past immigration situation, then ICE may be involved. So consult with an attorney, work with a lawyer, and hopefully you guys gonna stay ICE free. All right. I like this slogan, ICE free immigration. It's one of the trademarks that I own, ICE free immigration. Hi, Nika. I go to my oath ceremony in 2 weeks. Congratulations. Interview was waived. I'm excited. Can't wait. I've never seen interview waived for naturalization. Like, never. Not sure what's happening there. All right. Hi, back up the orange wolf. Oh, there are no future hearings for this case. Oh, all right. So you probably are in immigration court proceedings, and your case has been pending in immigration court for 6 years, and it says that there are no future hearings for this case. Listen, you're blessed. Please, guys, if you have this situation that there are no future hearings, do not try to put yourself on the calendar. Currently, it's not the climate to ask for anything from immigration judges that are facing this tremendous pressure to deport everybody. You understand? I hope you understand that. All right. So hopefully you're gonna wait out this time and get yourself a fair hearing in 4 years. All right. Okay. Hi, Bob Sweets. What is the difference between lawyer being virtually present and in person? Well, virtually present, I guess they will be connecting online somehow or over the phone, right? And in person, they will come with you if you have to come in person. Sometimes, if the lawyer is allowed to appear virtually, especially for master hearing, it means that you're allowed to appear virtually as well, which is a good thing for you because then you don't have to come to court and face that possibility of being arrested, right? So there are its own pluses for all kind of situations. Hi, Shady Hunter. I'm an interesting nickname. I'm an asylum seeker pending case. Came in with a visa in 2023. Should I be worried of deportation? Listen, if you don't have status, anybody can technically be placed in removal proceedings, right? But in your situation, even if you are placed in removal proceedings, you should be allowed to see the judge and have a hearing. So you will be presenting your asylum claim not before the asylum officer, but before the immigration judge. So I think you should be okay, right? Technically speaking, these expedited removal proceedings, they should apply only to people who entered without authorization. And that's where there is this problem. When the administration announced that they're going to be taking away parole to paroled people and placing them in expedited removal proceedings, it's a problemo. Why? Because under the law, the person should enter without authorization in order for this expedited removal to be applied. And people who entered on parole, they were paroled. They entered with authorization. I really do not know how this administration thinks it's the same thing. When you're paroled and when you entered without any parole inspection, I have no idea what's happening anymore, I'll be honest. And this question, I think, now is being raised in courts as well. So we're going to see how it's all going to be resolved. Okay. Hi, Samir. How about adjustment of status for daughters? Marriage for mothers, USA, she has pending asylum. adjustment of status for daughters, marriage for mom. I'm not sure what's happened here. I'll be very happy to answer, but I need some clarification, okay? Maybe I'm just tired. I'm sorry. If you could give me a little bit more information, so I will try to tune in into your question. Hi, David. Can a green card holder travel outside with no criminal record? Yes, but if the green card holder wants to not have any issues and headaches at the border, they better not to. Hi, back up the orange wolf. Is there any benefits if DHS does not submit an appeal? We did with my lawyer. Okay, so you appealed, but DHS didn't file opposition. That's what it is? Well, I guess there is some benefit, but still, the Board of Immigration Appeals, so if we talk about them, they would have to review independently all the issues. So I guess there is a benefit because the other side didn't produce the arguments. It happens. I have cases where DHS didn't submit their briefs on time. Sure, it's better this way, right? Why not? Hi, Angel. What should I do if ICE came to my job, but I'm a DACA recipient? What would happen if ICE to come to your job? Well, while you have DACA, you're not deportable. If they revoke your DACA status, then you will be. If they come to your job, you show your DACA approval, right? And you explain to them that you have status. That's what you do. Okay, don't say that. Some lawyers say don't cooperate with them. You will be arrested if you don't. And I think it's stupid to spend time in jail when you don't have to. Yes, if you have status, show them that you have status, and that's the end of the story. Okay, and they're gonna leave you alone. Well, they should. Sometimes they don't believe you, like even if you're a US citizen. And but then what happens is this: if you show them that you're a citizen and they still arrested you, guess what's going to happen? You're going to sue them. Now they had a notice that you are a US citizen. They lost their probable cause to arrest you, and they still went ahead with the arrest. Now there will be a lawsuit. If they do not know that you are a US citizen, they may arrest you to verify your identity under certain circumstances. Okay, it depends on what's happening. But if you show them proof that you are, like there was this case of a guy who showed them a birth certificate, and even that he showed them the birth certificate that he was born, I think, in Georgia. They're like, no, you don't speak English. He doesn't speak English well because he spent his time in Mexico when he was born in the United States, and then his parents moved back to Mexico, from what I understand. And he speaks some kind of weird dialect. He doesn't even speak Spanish. There are people like that, okay? Everybody had different background, but nevertheless, he is a US citizen. So what happened was when he was in the United States, they were raiding some work site, and this person was there. And they're like, oh, you don't speak English. We think you're not a US citizen. He's like, I am a US citizen. I have my birth certificate. And they didn't believe him. Well, he's going to be suing. And for every day he spent in detention, because there was no course for them to arrest him at this point, he should be provided compensation, okay? Plus maybe some other damages, lawyers' fees, and so on. All right? So show the status, be calm. Please do not fight with the officers. I read sometimes that the person was arrested because he resisted ICE officers. Guess what? If before, prior to fighting the ICE officer, they maybe didn't have probable cause to grab you, now you gave them one. So just keep that in mind, please. Law enforcement is not a joke, all right? You don't have to open the door when they don't have a warrant. That's a totally different story. But you shouldn't be physical with the law enforcement. You have to understand that, okay? Hi, Samia Fofa. Okay, she's my daughter. She's asylum, not taking approval yet, but she need complete her case at NVC. All right, so she filed for asylum. Was it like I-730 situation? That's what happened? That's why the case is with National Visa Center, right? So if you guys if you as a mother want asylum and you filed I-730 petition for your daughter, you just follow the steps and she'll be fine. Those cases were not paused, if I understood your situation correctly. Okay. All right. Let's see what else we have. Hi, Nilar. If the asylum seeker can travel domestically without passport, well, you have to have a real ID compliant document. It may be a foreign passport or it may be work permit. All right. If you have a work permit, then yes, you will be able to. All right. Okay. Let's see. Hi, Bruno. Good evening, Alina. My N400 was denied back in 2013 due to misrepresentation. I have no criminal record. I have 2 US citizen children. I would like to reapply the 237A1H waiver. All right, so to file for that waiver, though, you have to be in removal proceedings. Okay? If misrepresentation happened and the government said that you don't have a good moral character, then what happens is that you may apply in the new good moral character period of 5 years. If the government stated that you misrepresented yourself when you received the green card, that's a totally different story. Okay? That's a totally different story, because then you may want to have that waiver filed to clear up your record, but to do that, you have to be in removal proceedings. You can't just file the waiver to clear up the situation, unfortunately. All right? You may file for readjustment sometimes, which is allowed. That's a totally different discussion. Hi, Mama Dao. I applied for motion after my I-45 was denied, but my I-360 approved through VAWA. Do I have any chance? Applied for motion to reopen with immigration court. I have to get more information because I will think for you here, okay, as to what happened. I will guess. Hi, To. BIA has received my asylum appeal brief 1 year ago, and I have been appealing for 3 years. How long I guess how long the decision is going to take? So you filed an appeal. You waited, from what I understand, for a very long time for the briefing schedule, and then you are waiting on that decision. It may take 2.5 years to get a decision by the Board of Immigration Appeals, right? Maybe a very long time. Okay. Hi, Kate. Is filing taxes on the incorrect status will lead to denial of N400? Well, if that incorrect status caused you to owe additional tax to the US government, then yes, it may. Also, if you received a green card and you're filing for citizenship based on a marriage to US citizen, you use this 3-year rule, and you're filing taxes separately, then yeah, it will. So fix your taxes as soon as possible. That's one thing that nobody should play around with, taxes, guys. Hi, Sir. What's going on with USCIS from cutting jobs and budget? Is this gonna affect applications processing times? I'm not sure about them cutting jobs and their budget. To be honest, I have not seen this news. I know that Trump administration is going to increase budget for the law enforcement. I'm not sure about USCIS. Also, USCIS budget depends on the application fees, guys. So Remember when a default is happening sometimes in the United States for a day or two? Place that never closes is USCIS. It's funded by the fees. So, I don't think they will be terribly affected. Jobs is a different story when they fire non-loyal people, but they will rehire. They'll hire somebody else. Thank you, Sophia, very much for your heart, for your gift. I have 45 interviews. It's safe. My son did the petition. Okay, Sophia, it depends on your situation. Have you ever had any criminal situation? Have you ever had any immigration trouble? If not, then you should be fine. Currently, USCIS is calling for the interview even parents of the US citizens. All right. So if you have a legal entry, you simply overstayed, you should be okay. But of course, take an attorney with you just to be on the safe side. Okay. All right. All right. Guys, if you need to discuss your case in more details, please call my office to set up an appointment. Here I'm just giving you little hints as to what may happen, but for proper consultation, I need to know details, sometimes see documents, talk to you about your situation, your goals, right? Your previous immigration history, criminal history, things like that. All that is very relevant. And sometimes odd things may be relevant. I'm telling you, during the first Trump administration, I saw weird denial over citizenship. The person was accused of something called unlawful act. And you know what happened there? It was crazy. So the person appeared for the interview, everything went well. And then the officer asked them, have you ever invited someone on a B1, B2 visa to stay with you in the United States? The person says, yes, my friend. They're like, only one person? He's like, yeah. He's like, well, there are 3 people invited by you. He's like, what? And 2 of them overstayed. So long time ago, the client used some kind of an agency, or his friend used some kind of an agency to help them with filling out B1, B2 visitors visa paperwork. That agency was not nice because they saved my client's information and started using him as a person, as a contact in the United States for other applicants. He had no idea who they were. And those people with state visas, and now when he went for his citizenship, he was accused of trafficking people to the United States, shockingly. I mean, it was crazy, really. So sometimes you face this very odd situations, extremely weird situations. And we had to appeal this, and eventually the client, of course, received the citizenship. But I don't know, sometimes it's just weird stuff that may happen to you. Without even your knowledge, somebody can steal your identity and do whatever, especially these days. All right, let's see if we have more questions here, guys. All right. Hi, Mario. Can I file for I-485 with a pending I-130 receipt? I got here with F1 visa. Well, I think it depends on the category for that I-130. If you fall into the category of immediate relatives, then you should be able to, right? All right. Okay. All right, guys. Well, listen, thank you very much for your questions. Let me answer one last question. What is a reasonable time to file a mandamus lawsuit if you've been waiting for an asylum interview? Hi, Tanasia. Reasonable time, I guess, is going to be about 7 years. Why? Because there was a lawsuit by a person who waited for his asylum for 4 years, filed mandamus and lost. Federal judge stated that 4 years on the current processing times is just not enough to blame the government for the delay. But prior to you filing that mandamus lawsuit, you have to understand that this time the government most likely is going to retaliate against you. Plus, you have to have a very well-prepared case. I've seen time and time again people filing the lawsuits, not my clients, who are not prepared for the asylum interviews. They get the date and they just do not know what to do. Also, what I've seen is that the government says after the lawsuit is filed, we're going to give you a date in 2028. Be prepared. So they technically complied and gave you the date, but it's not tomorrow that you wanted. Okay? Just keep that in mind when you're going to be investing tens of thousands of dollars into the lawsuit. Lawsuits against the government are very, very costly. All right? Well, guys, thank you very much for your time and for your likes and gifts and hearts and attention. Thank you for following and joining the social media, helping my social media to grow. I truly appreciate it. I hold these lives usually twice a week. If everything goes well, we're going to meet again next Tuesday. For now, have a safe, beautiful, happy weekend, and I hope to see you guys soon.